The really defining moment for me was when I was working with a pharmaceutical company, and we were getting ready to launch a product back in the late 90s to treat HIV and AIDS. And what we had seen at the time, and if you remember back in that time period, the activist community was strong, and the activist community was very anti-pharmaceutical company for a lot of reasons. And so we were watching how other pharmaceutical companies had interacted with this group, particularly around pricing. And remember, at the time, most people were disabled who were being affected by this disease, and so they needed to get their products through various state, local, and federal government programs that in many cases were underfunded. So we were watching how the other pharmaceutical companies addressed these, and we said, you know what, we need to do something different. And we actually had a CEO at the time who understood that for us to really do and create value for the organization, we had to interact with this broader stakeholder community, which included these activists, as well as government agencies and whatnot. At the time, I was head of the State Government Affairs group, so I was responsible now for going out and interacting with these folks. And we did some radical things. We actually hired people from the activist community into the organization. They were willing to come into our organization because they recognized that we did care about their interests. They recognized that we did want to listen to their interests. We also invited them in on pricing. Now think about this. This is an activist group that said, we don't like pharmaceutical companies because they charge too much. We're inviting them in to have a discussion about that. It was unheard of at the time. But what we found is when we worked with the activist community, when we worked with the aid service organizations, when we worked with government agencies and helped fund create more funding for these AIDS drug assistance programs and listened to what they needed and acted with them in terms of AIDS awareness, AIDS prevention. We were meeting their needs. They were at least willing to have a dialogue with us. And what we found was we were able to get our product approved on formularies faster than anybody had. We were able to get a reasonable price that we could live with, as well as the activist community. And it taught me at that moment, you can't ignore the broader stakeholder community. You may not think they have a direct impact on you. You know, most companies care about shareholders, care about maybe employees and the and their customers. But we found that there's this broader stakeholder community that you have to be engaged with. And I think for me that was a defining moment, that it really set, I think, my leadership going forward from there, that you can't ignore the broad stakeholder community. And if you actually interact with them and deal with them, it's amazing what you can accomplish together, both for the organization, but also for the community and for society at large.